real estate investing. You've heard about it and you've probably said, I can't do that. That's too much money. That's too hard for me. Just not my cup of tea. I got news for you. There's any number of reasons why that statement is wrong. Join myself and my mortgage lending partner, Ed Mohan, while we go through all the reasons that you can be a real estate investor. Hey everybody, Dave Nielsen with Keller Williams, joined by my friend and colleague Ed Mohan of Inland Bank. We're here for Season 1, Episode 2 of We Still Don't Know What Yet. We haven't come up with the name, but we promise we're going to do that
eventually. Next episode, we will have that figured out for you.
We will have it figured out. Right now, we're going with the podcast to be named later. As a couple of big baseball fans, that will make sense to us and hopefully to you as well. But that notwithstanding, how are you today, good sir?
I'm doing very well. Very refreshed from my vacation out west.
Very good, yes. You are a very, very cool and popular man who gets to travel and go do things.
I do, and I enjoy that, but I'm really excited to be back here and talking about our next episode.
Very good, yeah. Good. Today, we're talking about real estate investments. Yes. Which is something that, you know, as a mortgage lender, as a realtor, this is what we do. It's not just about finding people pretty houses, and while, of course, that is something that we do. What you said to me before we started filming today was real estate is how you build generational wealth. One thing that I say to almost everybody I work with, especially like first-timers, right, is that real estate or property ownership, it's the most reliable and the most accessible means of building wealth available to an entire generation of people, and they don't even know it. And they need people like us to help point that out to them.
Certainly. There's a lot of programs out there right now that are allowing people to become homeowners and thus using that home ownership to build other properties in their portfolio. And it's a way to really create revenue through a monthly income in addition to creating equity over the long haul.
Right. So let's talk about, let's just make a quick list of what the different kinds of ownership are. Now, we live in Rhode Island. We film this in Rhode Island. There are a lot of multifamily properties in our area. When we say multifamily, you know, other people might refer to it as a duplex, a triplex, a quad. Right.
Yep.
3-family investment, buy and hold rental, super popular around here, right?
Certainly.
But you've got, you know, you can flip properties.
Yep.
You know, buy a broken down, busted out house, renovate it, and sell it for a big profit. You can do Airbnb, VRBO, vacation rental by owner. I had a whole list. What else is on that
list?
Loans. Student rentals. Yeah. Student loans. Yeah. So we don't. Student loans bad. Student rental good.
Right.
Yeah. If you're near like some major
universities, absolutely. Yep. The rentals can be very, very profitable for you in those areas.
Absolutely. So we're going to speak mostly in general terms of investments, but there are many different kinds. If you're interested to find out what those kinds are and say you've got some ideas, obviously we're happy to engage with you on that. Just leave something in the comments, and then we'll get back to you. And we're going to put contact information in this as well, so you can have that. I know that for most people, the big barrier to getting into property investment is, oh my God, Ed, it's so much money.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not free, but it's not entirely prohibitive either, because there are ways that people can become investors, they don't even realize it.
100% financing for an investment property is a real thing.
Right.
When you think about it, if you're a current homeowner now and you've developed equity over the last several years, you could draw on that equity for the down payment of an investment property, finance the remaining part through your mortgage, and voila, you've got 100% financing, 25% maybe on your primary residence, followed up with 75% financing through the bank, and your tenants can pay all of that mortgage for you.
Right.
They can cover that rental property, and they can likely cover the home equity loan or line that you get to fund your down payment.
Right.
So with rentals being so expensive these days, why not take advantage of creating equity and wealth in the long run?
Your generational wealth comes from this. So you said a magic word a couple times there, equity. For those that don't know, if you don't speak real estate like Ed and I do, equity essentially is the difference between the current market value of your property, so what you could sell it for, and how much you owe on that property.
Correct.
If my property is worth $300,000 and I owe $200,000 on it, I have $100,000 in equity.
Correct.
Basic principle. And when I'm talking to people, like a service that a realtor offers is very frequently like, hey, I'd love to do a CMA on your house. If somebody says to you, run comps, that's what a CMA is. Comparative market analysis, right? Sure. But somebody will say like, oh, but Dave, I'm not selling my house. What do I care what it's worth? Well, we know that's a lot more important than that, right?
That's absolutely the case, because you have to understand that, a lot of these websites that you see online don't really give you the true value of a property. Getting a comparative market analysis will really identify how much you think you can get an appraiser to go out there and appraise your property for. Knowing what that value is, you can now determine how much you can get for a home equity loan with the remaining equity. You cannot borrow the full amount of the equity in your home. Years ago, you would be able to do that.
Right.
You could get a home equity line of credit for 100% of the value of your home. But that's, old times now.
Right.
But you can probably get up to 80% of the property. In some situations, we have investors that will go up to 90% of the value of your property minus your first mortgage. So you can probably get to a good amount of your equity if you've had it built up over these last few years.
Right. So I'm going to pick something apart there. So in the example I gave, you have $100,000 in equity. You're telling me that with certain loan products, lines of credit, whatever, I can get access to about 90% of that. So I have $100,000 in equity. It is theoretically possible for me to have $90,000 that I can go spend on an investment property.
Well, the math might be a little bit wrong there, Dave,
sure.
Because 80% of $300,000 is $240,000.
Right.
Right. So 90% would be $380,000. Right. So in your example, if you had a mortgage of $200,000, you'd have 80. So you're close.
Close enough.
I'm
yeah.
the math guy. Maybe you're
that's why. Yeah.
sale guy.
That's why you do your thing and I do my thing.
But regardless, you've got $80,000 to be able to go out and put down for an investment property.
Right. Now, it might sound kind of crazy. Somebody's going to listen to this and say like, I don't have that kind of equity in my house. Well, throw your hand up if you've owned your house for more than 3 years, right? Yeah. So like we talked in episode 1 of the thing that we don't have a name for yet about what is happening in the market. In the last 2 years, how much property values have gone up and how we think that they're going to, at best, stand still, probably continue to go up, right? So if you bought a property prior to that, or in some cases it's been going on long enough during that, you do have a lot of equity.
True. A
lot of colleagues that I'm talking to, and myself included, I have people who have bought properties even 2020. We're filming this in February of 2022. People who bought properties 24 months ago or less have enough equity to take advantage of this. Let's talk about my example, because I know me better than I know most people. You called me. You called me in 2018. I had bought my house in 2015. $230,000. So real numbers. Was $235,000 we paid for my house. You had done a loan recently right around the corner from me. It was like $320,000 or something like that. And when you started talking, like, how much equity do you have? Do you know that you can do this? I did not. And I long story short, we figured out how much equity I had, if it was going to be enough to do something. And what that something became was I bought a triplex. I bought a 3-family buy and hold investment property, the next town over. And I paid $180,000 for that property. I had enough equity to get the 25% down required for that investment property. And now my children, who are 7 and 3, I can sell that building today and just put that money somewhere else. Their college is paid for.
That's
today.
Your goal. That was your goal day one.
That's all I wanted.
When we talked about that, you weren't really familiar with what a home equity line of credit could do.
It was fairly new.
And, it can be a very inexpensive monthly payment if you choose to pay interest only. I look at trying to pay as much on that as possible. So when you have the usage of a home equity line of credit to fund a down payment, you kind of want to pay that money back. Well, if you're getting a significant amount of positive net rental income, which rents are providing these days, you can take a portion of that and start paying down your line of credit balance to get it back to the original balance that you had. Another possibility is you could take that extra rental income and put it down on your first mortgage, and try and drive that from maybe a 30-year to a 20-year or 15-year term. So you're creating equity in your primary residence through the tenant's rental payments that they're making to each month. So it's something that you can get creative with how you want to not only get revenue monthly on just put in your pocket and pay down debt, or go on vacation and pay for a wedding, which I got to do this year. So I'm looking at any type of option it is to try and subsidize my daughter, who's got very,
expensive
tastes is probably the best way to put it. She'll be watching this, so I don't want to offend her by
let's not go crazy. But understand who's paying for it.
That's right.
Daddy's paying for it. So there's a couple of different value elements that we fit there. I was just talking about equity.
Yeah.
And then purchasing the property and having the down payment. You mentioned the other fun part of what is very common in our area, rental income.
Right.
The basic formula, if my rental income exceeds my we call it the PITI.
Yep.
PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. If your rental income increases that, then your investment property is making money for you. The money that it's making for you, you just said you can put that into, to pay down the first mortgage on your primary residence, rebuild that equity.
Correct.
And then in not too terribly long a time, go buy the second property.
Right.
So I talked about how that property that I bought is going to fund my 2 children's education. Well, my second one, that's gonna be my house on the lake somewhere. That's going to be my
dream. It creates the dreams, right?
It's
because
the dream,
the average person is not making enough to be able to retire a millionaire. It's
No.
everyone's dream to become a millionaire, but owning a home can be the key to making that happen without you having to earn $500,000 a year and to be able to really create your wealth through your income. If you're on a teacher's salary or a nurse's salary, you save up an awful lot of money to be able to buy that first house. Let the equity do the rest to try and get advance you in the future.
Right. And when you're just saving part of a paycheck, right? You can put down. I mean, the way most people live, right? You get your income. Let's say you have a $50,000 a year job.
Yeah.
And let's call it $4,000 a month because it's easier. My income is $4,000 a month, and
fair.
To own my house, it costs me $1,800, and then to buy my food, I'm a bad estimate of food because I probably spend more than most people, but call it $100 a week on food, right? And then gas, cable,
entertainment,
utilities. What do you have left to put aside? A couple $100?
Yeah.
How long is it going to take me? And this is for somebody who owns a house. How long is it going to take me? A couple $100 a month at a time to get the required 25% down payment to purchase that investment property? It's going to take forever.
Forever, and especially with inflation growing at leaps and bounds as it is right now, it's going to be tougher and tougher to do that.
Right. So that equity, so if you own that property, that equity is going up over time. So you said inflation, equity can, it's not an exact parallel, but equity can help you at least keep up with inflation a little bit. That money that you need to buy that property comes to you much, much faster.
No doubt.
Right. So that's how if you own a property, you can use it to create further generational wealth. And that's just your Joe Schmo, we live in our 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house, and now this is now an employee working for me to make me all that money. What if I don't own a house?
If you don't own a house and can't tap into the equity in your home,
right?
Well, then there's some non-qualified mortgage products that can be very sustainable for a period of 4 or 5 years that you can get into an investment property with less money down than conventional standards, which is 25%.
Right.
So if someone doesn't have the access to a full 25% down payment, there's other options that you can get in a little bit cheaper. You can even look at some of the investors that will do a fix and flip to try and build that quick money to go ahead and buy that investment property.
Right.
There's an awful lot of investors that I work with that are looking to try and finance through private financing, which is much, much more expensive. They just aren't aware that there's other options out there for lenders to provide not only the down payment, the down payment, they'd have to come with down payment, but they will provide not only the acquisition financing, but they'll do renovation money. So if the plan is to fix and flip, you can finance the majority of that project because you're buying it probably a little bit under market if it's going to need rehab. And you're going to be flipping that. Maybe you're making 20 grand, maybe you're making 50,000 on a flip. Now you're at least starting the game to be able to fund a real down payment for an investment property that, what's it going for these days, Dave? Around $400,000 for a 3-family in local areas?
Yeah, Northern Rhode Island, Providence, like where all the multifamilies are, Providence, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, those are the areas that I hunt. You're looking anywhere between 350,000 and 450,000 and up.
Right. So 100,000 would be the down payment for using 25% as a conventional down payment requirement.
Right.
That's going to be difficult to do for an awful lot of people that don't have equity that they could tap into. So maybe some of these fix and flips and some of these fix and holds can create that equity with less money down.
Right.
Now, there is the trade-off that interest rates are going to be higher when you're putting less money down on an investment. But you got to pay for what you're going to have access to, and if you don't have access to $100,000, but the difference might be 6% instead of 4.5%.
Sure.
It's not outrageous. Private financing could be 10 to 12, 13%, and multiple points where that's really too costly when there's other options out there.
Right.
And some of these investors will go down to a 620 credit score, Dave, for a fix and flip.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't have to be, a pristine borrower to be able to start your dream of multi-property homeownership.
Right. And see, that's actually not even the direction I thought you were going to go, right? So you're talking about fix and flip as a way to put a large sum of money into your pocket quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you stop me if I say any of the numbers wrong. Again, you're the finance guy. I'm not the finance guy, but
Stop.
I haven't even said any numbers yet. So if I wanted to buy a property that was in some state of disarray,
Sure.
I'm going to buy it under market value because it's literally just a cardboard box that's on fire. So I'm not going to pay I'm not going to pay market value for that.
No.
I can get into that. You mentioned the fix and flip loans. We refer to them most frequently as an FHA 203K construction loan.
Correct.
3.5% down on that. Is that correct?
3.5% down on the acquisition plus whatever the renovations are going to cost. So,
Right.
if you're picking up that property for $200,000, you're going to put $50,000 into it. Then yes, you're going to have to put down 3.5% of the $250,000.
So 3.5% real quick of 250 is what, 8, 7? I don't know, between 7 and 9,000, somewhere in there.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, a very wide
Right
range.
around 9. Yeah, sure.
Got it. Cool. So that number, it's not nothing. I'm not going to sit here and say that like, oh yeah, you can just like look under your mattress and find $9,000. That's obviously ridiculous. It's a little easier to find $9,000 in the mattress than it is to find $100,000 in the mattress.
Right.
And then you're telling me that I can buy this property, renovate it, and then sell it for, call it between $350 and $400, just because we know the market.
With no prepayment penalties or anything that would prohibit you from unloading that property once it's completed.
Right. Now, at the risk of oversimplifying it, because you have to figure certain taxes and closing costs and all that stuff. Whatever you sell it, the difference between what you sell it for and what you put into it is what you put in your pocket. That can get you to the $100,000 down payment in not a ton of time.
Correct.
Right. A lot faster than you'd get there if you were putting $400 in the piggy bank every month. Right.
Just a wee bit sooner. Yeah.
Right. So another thing that we talked about before we started filming today. So I was thinking about living in the property and working my way. I call it down the ladder. Right. So residential properties, at least in our area, I don't know anywhere else, but in our area are considered 4 units or less. So any quadplex, triplex, duplex, single family home, all residential. Anything above it is commercial where the rules are a little different. So we're going to start with 4. If I want to move into a 4-unit property, figure that that's probably going to be between, let's call it $500,000.
Okay.
3.5% of $500,000.
Sure.
Is
18 and change?
Yes, call it 18.
Okay.
$18,000 is significantly less than the $125,000 that 25% is, right?
It is.
Right. Yeah, so, okay, good. So, yes, we got it. So, the reason that number is important is if it's not clear to anybody listening already, I'm not going to live in the property, I have to come up with 25%. I am going to live in the property, I can buy it with 3.5%.
Yes.
Let's retranslate that. I'm going to live in the property. I'm not going to live in the property. It cost me $125,000. I am going to live in the property. I save over $100,000 on my acquisition cost.
Correct.
There we go. So I can purchase that property with an FHA loan, 3.5% down.
Correct.
In a year, I can refinance, out of that FHA loan, and then I can move into a 3-family.
And the reason you would have to do that is because you cannot have more than one FHA loan at a time.
Right.
So you would need to refinance that into a conventional loan to give you the opportunity to purchase a 3-unit or a 2-unit with FHA financing, which allows that smaller percentage down versus conventional, which does require more on a multifamily.
Right. And what Joe homeowner needs to have heard there is, I need to call my lender when it's time to, my lender and my realtor when it's time to purchase the next property.
Right.
So working down the chain, if you are not going to live in that 3-family that you're buying, again, it's 25% down. It's maybe not cost prohibitive for you at that point because you already own a property.
Right.
But if you move into that property, you're doing so, again, saving a significant amount of money because you're buying it with 3.5% down instead of 25% down.
Correct.
And then a year after that, I can refinance my FHA loan into conventional financing and move into a 2-family.
Yeah.
And work my way down the chain until I have a single family. And then when I'm done, I have now moved into a single family home for me, my wife, my 2.5 kids, the dog, and the white picket fence for 3.5% down. And I own a 4-unit building, 4 income producing units. I own a 3-unit building, 3 income producing units, and a 2-unit building, 2 income producing units. 9 doors total who are paying me almost certainly more than the total money amount I'm spending in my pity, my debt service, across the 10 doors that, I hit my mic.
Likely, no doubt about it, that you would be positive cash flow in each of those properties.
Yep.
Taxes are going to go up, insurance costs are going to go up, but, with interest rates still near, all-time lows. We're not at the all-time lows now, but when you're borrowing in the range that we're currently in, you're going to have positive cash flow, and because you're going to have a fixed rate, it's going to be positive for a lengthy period of time, probably the entire time that you own the house.
Right.
That is a great theory. You cannot go the opposite way, though.
Right.
And let's
Down the
explain
chain,
why that is the case. When an underwriter looks and sees that you're moving from a 4-unit to a 3-unit, well, you're going to 1 unit less of a property, that they can see that as a value. Same thing from a 3 to a 2, you got less people above or beneath you, and then from a 2 to a single. But you cannot go from a single family into a 2-family and convince an underwriter you're going to live there, because why would someone move out of a single family? Although some people think that they wouldn't mind that, you're not going to get that by an underwriter. Because so it's got to go from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 if you want to do that scenario.
Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt, but essentially the idea is to get that FHA financing, that loan program very specifically is aimed at home ownership for your primary residence. It's not meant to capitalize on as a platform for building an investment portfolio.
True.
Even though that's exactly what we just laid out. But the way we just described it, you own 10 doors, including the one that you live in 4 years. Yeah. That's wild.
It's possible. It's an aggressive approach. There's people out there that wish they could have done that, multi-years ago. I probably am one of those people. But, you also have to, let me ask you this, Dave.
Sure.
You also have to be capable to be a landlord. And some people feel like they don't want to be bothered by someone calling them at 7 o'clock at night and saying, hey, the heater broke, or, there's a leak in the roof, and those are the calls that you don't want. It's bad enough when you have them happen in your house, or if there's whatever tenant situation's going on, the first floor doesn't like the second floor. What's it like to be a landlord since you're a...
It's a hoot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you have to manage, and we've had a couple snowstorms here recently. Getting a plow guy to come out is kind of frustrating. I did have to replace 3 heating systems. I did renovate one of my units because it was just kind of left in a state of disarray. But for me personally, now I got my start in rentals, so I've been in a lot of rentals. I've had a lot of clients who rehab those properties, and I know what it's like, so I'm prepared for it. I've been living that life for over a decade. I just know sometimes I need to deal with a headache, so I just put a little money aside for a bottle of aspirin every month, and that's kind of how I get through it. But you do have to kind of be at somebody's beck and call if something goes wrong.
Or hire a property manager if you didn't want to be bothered.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's where I was going. So, do you know what the average cost to hire a property manager is?
I do not.
It's about 10% of your gross.
I was going to guess that, but,
It would have been great. You would look so smart.
I would have.
Yeah. We need that. We need to talk about that. But yeah, so it's like, So let's just say, so my gross rent on the property that I own is $2,880. That's my gross rent across 3 units.
Okay.
So like $300 to not have to worry about the plow. I mean, yeah, I still have to pay for the plow, but to not have to be like, oh, there's a storm coming. I need to find somebody who's available at 6 a.m. That's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So I'll just pay out the 10%, and that'll be fine. This is going to get way too abstract, but I'm going to go there anyway.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we don't live in one of the most expensive areas in the country. But we don't live in the cheapest either.
No.
So you can find areas where property values are lower. And when I say property values are lower, what I'm really saying is acquisition costs are lower. Just the cost to own the property, your PITI is lower. You can buy that property, hire a property manager for only 10% of the gross rent, and you didn't have to save up the $100,000 that it cost you to get the property up here. You can do it with significantly less because you bought in a cheaper area of the country. I don't want to go too far down that road, but just like, oh, but Dave, I live in San Francisco. I can't do that here. That's great. You don't have to, because you can do it anywhere else.
Your thought process on that is a little bit flawed because
Oh,
you have to live in the property and put that 3.5% down.
right. But I was also talking about 25% down.
Oh, you were? Okay.
So you're flawed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying in different areas of the country.
We're gonna
where
fight now.
property. I'm sorry. My bad.
I'm used to you telling me when my thought process is flawed, but I thought I had that one.
Yeah, I think you did. I think
I blame you. It's really a better way to go. But I mean, effectively,
Yeah.
you can. What having a property manager does, jokes aside, is it allows you to invest in other areas of the country.
certainly,
You
yes.
know, and that's fantastic. And then you don't have to worry about plow guys. You can buy somewhere where it doesn't snow. You don't have to worry about plows at all.
Arizona just came back from there. They're building like crazy. There's plenty of land out in the desert. You can get property over near Arizona State University, and probably, we talked about student rentals, and they tend to pay quite a bit of money for a shared unit.
Right.
So those are certainly areas where it's far cheaper. Taxes are much less. It allows you for a larger ceiling in terms of your positive net rental cash flow.
Right. And I mean, so I do kind of want to put a bow on this. I'm gonna close by saying what we opened with, that real estate is the most reliable and most accessible means of building wealth available to an entire generation of people. All they need is somebody to tell them how to do it. Now, worth saying, everybody's situation is a little bit different. Your credit score is different. Your income streams are different. There's plenty of differences. What best serves you, the person who wants to get into this, have a conversation with the professionals. We're going to put our contact information right here. So it's going to pop up
Do I
magically.
have to do that too?
I'm not. Yeah, do it. Yeah, because it'll be over there now. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
Perfect. So reach out to us. We'll take your questions. We'll set you up with a personalized consultation and get you the information, the plan that you need. Maybe it takes you a year,
Yeah.
but it's not going to take you 10 like it would otherwise.
And we didn't cover this, and certainly we don't need to go into it in depth right now. But there's products out there where you don't even need that income verification. You can actually purchase an investment property through what's called a debt service cover ratio. And simply what that is that if the projected rents outperform what the monthly payment's going to be, including the taxes and insurance, as long as that's greater than 100%, then you're going to be able to qualify for that loan. So you don't have to worry about your tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, or anything like that. They're concentrating on the property's rental performance and your credit.
There are so many people who don't get into this. By this, I mean real estate investing, because they think it's too hard. Somebody in their life says, well, yeah, but you need 25% down. And while in some cases you do, people treat it as a blanket over the entire conversation, and it's just not. And there's just so much you can do, and so many ways you can benefit from
No
that.
doubt.
Yeah. All right, I think that's probably a good place to wrap. If you have further questions, please put them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer. If you want to get into this, if you want to get into real estate investing, reach out. Phone number again, right here. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Take care.
Thanks for listening.